Okay. So it begins. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The title that has found me, and hopefully my voice is clear. This is a different computer, but the title that has found me is "Come to Your Sincere Presence." And the title came to me throughout the day when I was driving in traffic. Come to your sincere presence. Why now more than ever, there's an importance on emotional stability over intellectual sharpness. Something for those who have been following these talks, I have recently found a way to organize a lot of my ideologies into this new vision of Civilization 2.0. What I thought of, I'm writing a book on that, so I'm not going to talk about that now. The importance of coming to your sincere presence is a recognition of how would I say it, the karmic influence of character. I don't know how many people in their lives have felt a moment where they were pushing too hard against the moment. Either if it was a point, if they were trying to prove a point, or they were trying to, in some sense, hold the victory of their inner realm. This realization that we have outer realms and inner realms really helps this. And for me, anything that I consider that has taken me closer to the unknown was not something of an idea in the future. This is a very important point I guess I can share. That there's a simplicity every being has access to, and that simplicity is like a memory before they learned language. And when you come to that simplicity, you come to a sort of finer details of just existence. Whether it's like noticing that kind of precious moment when you wake up in the morning and air, you breathe in, you like a deep inhale. The concept sincerity, I remember when I was in Iran, there was someone speaking about this word ikhlas, and the importance of, in some sense, being aware how you're simply functioning before you pay attention to the complexity. Two monks, after lunch, they go by a river to, as they typically would, to in some sense clean the wooden bowls of food they had. And one of them sees a scorpion, and the scorpion, like a tourist in a like a tourist in a city, in a new city, the scorpion took a wrong direction, and the scorpion is being moved by the water of the river. It's being pulled into the river. And one of the monks sees this, and scoops up the scorpion, and in the process gets stung. And his friend looks at him and is like, yo, did this guy just get stung by a scorpion? I mean, I could imagine how intense that would be if you just see someone like that. Silence is going to be an intense silence. The friend doesn't say anything. The Zen monk goes to release the scorpion, which is now trapped in the kind of half sphere shape of the bowl. And as the monk does this, the scorpion is freaked out and stings him and runs away. And his friend and the other monk looks at him and is like, you're gonna let that scorpion get away? No, really. The friend looks at the monk who got stung twice and says, my friend, why do you help? Why do you help the scorpion? Why do you help the scorpion when it's nature, when the nature of the scorpion is to sting? And it's kind of like a metaphor for sometimes in life you see people, and I find especially, I find this to be a more concern for women. But the thing is, like, it's like kind of like he's saying, why are you trying to change someone that their nature is to sting? Or you can say some people, you go around, their nature is to take. So if they're in a moment with you, they won't be satisfied until they've taken from you. You know, something, whether it's ideological, attention wise, or even sometimes physical. The Zen monk looks at him, and the Zen monk has a serenity, has a calmness, has an acceptance, even though he just got stung twice by a scorpion, and there is a potential for maybe tragedy. But this monk is smiling, and he looks at his friend and he says, because it is my nature to save the scorpion. Just like the scorpion's nature is to be destructive, it is my nature to be constructive, something like that. And guys, this is like a temporary computer I have, so let me know if the voice is coming okay. But anyways, and there's something in that story, in the response of the monk that got stung, where it was as if, yes, I can totally see the nature of chaos. I can totally see how there are some forces in nature that they are a counter action to order. You see, some people they have seen order. That means they've kind of woken up, experienced an ordered day. Chaos is the unfamiliar. But there are people, as I'm speaking right now on this planet, where chaos is more familiar to them, and the counter would be order. Think of, like, for example, Tarzan sitting at a dinner table. It's as if from chaos there is suddenly coming the imposition of an order. Now, I personally find that sincerity is the essence of being content with your simple nature. Something that we, as biological, you can say, momentum towards continuity, existential continuity. It's like, how would I say it? It's like, usually we tend to see all dimensions in one. When you look at, for example, a scientist, it's as if without matter, there's no certainty. And it's as if we're seeing all phenomena in one dimension, but there is an ability to see, how can I say it, one dimension in multiple dimensions. And if you notice, usually when I speak, or in my sort of I can say inert effort of articulation, it's as if I am either seeing things become multidimensional, either things are becoming singular or they are becoming void. You don't know how many days, pretty much every day I wake up and I'm like, do I see anything else other than these three dimensions? A sort of dimension where things are beginning, a dimension where things are ending, a dimension where things are changing. And the most profoundest dimension is change, because change is the unknown. So we can say that the process of creation is known. The process of death, destruction, is known too. When the creature is born, there's a sort of, even though not ideologically, but the creature becomes conscious of a presence of a world. There was something that Rupert Sheldrake, this scientist dash yogi at heart, I think, and he spoke about morphic fields, and he kind of spoke about how it's as if imagining that this rise and fall of civilizations, this pattern that this earth seems to keep presenting, is a sort of memory. And it's a sort of memory of the planet. Now, we tend to see our planet as inanimate, but it can be seen also as animate. The thing I realized about knowledge is that people are cherry picking sequentially language, words, but really how much experience there is behind the words is different. I remember when I would speak about something that I don't have any sort of experiential access to perceive, I can't speak about it. It's only when I kind of come to a memory of mine where I was just simply me. A sort of simplicity that this me was not even conceptual. You see, it's like all your like just like how matter is in space. We can say all language is lit with meaning in the space of awareness, experiential awareness. So pretty much experience is holding existence in the same way that space is holding matter, and it's field like. And so in my own inner process, I said that things are either, like, how can I tell you? It's like first it was just one type of being, one object in a world, and the world was objective. Then it's like suddenly as this object is moving in this objective world, suddenly it's like, wait a minute, how do I know I'm an object? And that how do I know takes one to a state where it's as if from the present, the future and past are like lines projected outwards. So you see, it's as if linearity is held in the absence of pure sight. Now that pure sight is the nature of the mind. It doesn't mean it's your nature, but it's the nature of the mind. Just like how, again, matter is in space. It's like your mind is in direct experience, if I can say that. And direct experience is so beautiful, and this is why I created the concept language threshold, because language is a dualistic technology. There are two exits beyond duality, either infinity or, in some sense, the singular, and then even much deeper, the second exit of the singular back into the void. Okay? So what I mean by that is, think about it. Things are either uniting or they are, how can I tell you? It's like I thought life was simple. Then I saw it was complex. I thought it was complex, but the complexity came from the simple. And then I looked at the simple and I realized the simple was never the simple, and that's when you go beyond the language threshold. That's when you can actually, as a being, all your subjective frameworks of thought that are accessible, at least in this present moment, you can kind of just put it on the side and look at life again. That's something I'm telling you guys. Knowledge is not just memorizing the right symbol attached to the subjective inner image of the concept. It's how sincerity has a simplicity to it that is like what is holding the simple in motion and what is holding the complex in motion. It's like they're in the same field. It's as if the simplest circumstances of your life and the most complex circumstances of your life are dancing. They're like dancers, like waltz dancing, imagine. So imagine chaos asked order to dance, and order was like, okay. And so now we human beings have to endure eons of karmic cycles because chaos and order want to dance in the void. By the way, guys, anyone listening, due to the nature of this being a live stream, feel free to share any thought, in the chat section, or any inner vision worth sharing you feel. And also, please state where you're listening from. I would be fascinated to know. To continue, this sincerity. Now, in the subtitle, I've written, guys. Actually, I tried something, but it was an error. Like, it doesn't allow you. The streaming software doesn't allow you to kind of put the greater than sign. But I mean, just a second. I can say that emotional stability is more necessary than intellectual sharpness and precision for truth to actually be shaped. So it's as if we are creatures that observe phenomena as design, and when we observe this phenomena as design, we start telling stories to the world. It's as if your mind is as the world telling a story of self, and also as the self telling the story of the world. When we come to the self telling the story of the world, that's your free will. When we have the world telling your story, that's in some sense, how can you have free will? You're the world's movement at that point. So you see, it's only in our separation from our space that we become an isolated knower capable to know. And that is the advantage of biological evolution. Now, human beings are under the impression that we have to, we separated from nature. We used to live in the actual jungle, and now we're living in a concrete jungle. And the concrete jungle, guys, is a very interesting idea, because I think it hasn't been introduced properly to the world. The concrete jungle is not just an urban environment, it's the inner savageness. There is a savageness, a savage dimension to society, and that savage dimension will remain until human beings learn to perceive themselves multidimensionally. All the horrible isms in the world, all racism, sexism, any kind of ism, the isms of suffering, sufferingism. What's phenomenal about language is that every word can be a philosophy if we consider it to be a causal point. Anytime, it's like, think of it this way. We have the first view. I would very boldly say this is the first view, and let's call it that. I feel universally, let's call it that. The first view that our civilization evoked to was that it was an object. The second view was that it was an object on an object. The third view was that it saw the object as a subject. Or let me rephrase that. The third view would be the civilization, or let me say it like this: the being observed, how they are not. How can I tell you? It's like object in a field. It's like we actually. This is a very, very intense. Sorry, guys, I have to go to a tangent here because it's fascinating. We have the impression our intelligence is from our brains. But when you look at it, our intelligence, the microcosm, appears to itself as an unknown field where known objects are found in. Do you know, sometimes the guys, when I give these talks, I feel like uh, Thor's hammer has fell into my hand, and I'm slamming the hammer not at an object, but at at sort of linguistic simulation, a sort of meaning kept from a hidden plane. You see, the study of our minds, firstly, find your own pace as a human being. You know, this is one thing where we can no longer depend on one educational system, one path, okay, for 8 billion beings that have 8 billion different DNA. So for me, this vision suddenly came that this society that we have built, this civilization we glorify, that we say it's human progress at its finest, you know, it's going to be something where I am telling you, it's the same way we say an inefficient civilization and advanced and efficient civilization and an inefficient civilization. It's like the mystic side, as the gods are looking down on the civilization, or the gods are raising the civilization. They have found value. When I say they have found value, it's like a recognition that if the brain is a receiver, is an antenna, and the mind is the reception, is the reception now. You know, it's like right now as I'm speaking. I mean, I tend not to. I have to kind of pilot smoothly around it because the unknown can be very chaotic. You know, and when if a person doesn't consciously come to the unknown with their own pace, you can say they can become a nihilist instantly. They can suddenly see a sort of hollowness without meaning, and that hollowness without meaning stops their search. Therefore, it's as if certain aspects of the person's intelligence just go on lockdown. You know, so what's important is that realizing we are we are the intersection of an unknown field of intelligence um, with known objective particles. And this intersection, the intersecting point, is the conscious creature. And so when we really look at sincerity on a mystical level, I can totally see. I can totally see why so many, when you go look at kind of paths to higher states of mind that were active in ancient times, you see all those programs limited, those dogmas limited to a sort of agenda. And it's kind of like, wait a minute, how can we shape something without a symbol? It's another way of saying something like that. The same way as surfers, like, how can I surf without a surfboard? That's why belief systems came into the mind of man. because the relationship with the unknown is too intense. The relationship with the unknown, if a person goes into the yogis, the mystics, these beings were very unique. They were kind of guided by an inner melody of their own, of the logos and their intuition. And their intuition was a sort of symbiosis of all the archetypes accessible in the moment with the you can say where they're hovering. That means the way I can explain perfectly how I have always deep down to like to some level have felt was that I am attention hovering in the unknown. Literally, it's like we're hovering in our own meaning. And if we choose to acknowledge the unknown, which is the humble path, we can, in some sense, update knowledge. Because the problem with shape is that unless there is an effort for that shape to change, it may never change. Unless you look at yourself in the mirror, you may never notice like um, uh, the result of extra sauce. For me, it's knowledge. The educational system threw me towards what was known. It didn't inspire exploration. And when I say exploration, this exploration is more like how they would say in a more secular light, the spirit of exploration, right? That in some sense, sure, on some level, we are just particles in empty space, but the inspiration, the direction, it's like we're not just creatures that have speed. We are creatures that have the capability to direct the mind. Now, on this planet, there's so many behaviors happening. It's unfathomable, and that's why it's kind of wondrous, right? That it's as if every person you have ever seen, there were worlds coagulating, images coagulating, sensations, symbols, feelings, whatever was happening as the person was an animate, dynamic part of the advancement of their civilization. You see, the difference between us, I find, and other species is that other species don't have the privilege to see more. But we, our species, had the privilege to see more, and it saw so much. Like, can you tell me, it's hilarious. Sometimes I look at a turtle and I'm like, whoa, this ape was so next level than like when you look at so many species on this earth, there's definitely the suggestion of a mysterious event in our history. Now, this mysterious event in our history is what I feel was the subjective evolution. Now, when I say the subjective evolution, I have to create how can I tell you? It's like the subjective evolution is, how would I say it here? It's when the creature realized its matter, and then it asked itself, what's realizing its matter? Or let me say it like this, it's when the creature looked in the mirror. Perfect. That's it. That's the subjective evolution. When the mind realized it's a field being mirrored in matter. Because character is so intense that when you think about the absence of character, do you know this is something I guess very personal I'm sharing, but and it may say I may say it's a bit kind of sometimes it's important to keep things moving in your life. Let me tell you why. Because there can be moments of stillness and silence that it's as if like once the direction of effort stops, the being just is. So when a creature just is, that means like the concept of velocity and speed is velocity has direction, it's speed directed somewhere. Okay, so when we look at human life, if the person just hovers, okay, it's just goes, you go at a speed but you have no direction, okay, it's as if like you haven't seen enough to have a direction. So life is something where vision is very crucial. That's the wealth of the mind. Like I could like if you want to be a mental billionaire, if you want to be a mental billionaire, okay, get to know how your eyes are being your eyes. Ask the question yourself. Go on the unknown quest. Trust what the universe reveals because now is now. Now is the only way. Contentment is so crucial. Contentment is so necessary. I can say for evolution. That means if you're not comfortable with the discomfort, if you're not comfortable with the discomfort, you don't understand the discomfort. Anything you understand how it works, you attain instant comfort, by the way. Knowledge is this, by the way, guys. You have opened your eyes in a process. And this process has given you the opportunity. I mean, this is pretty much the purpose of life. You're the most evolved update. It's like you're the new evolutionary update. And so it's like the purpose is built in the potential. Sincerity is what moves the pilot's hat. So I kind of saw, instead of like, you see, the whole problem with the educational system is it has been stripped away from honor. And when a system strips away from honor, it immediately breaks down into anarchy. And let me tell you why. Because when there is no honor, when you what you do throughout the day, your energetic contribution to your universe, to your conscious universe throughout the day. What can I say? We are not just creatures. We are fields of sight that are constantly rebuild themselves. Just like your human body rebuilds itself, it has a natural direction, as if like you have opened your eyes in a program of nature. Now you can choose to own this program and give ownership of this program to the archetype, or you can choose to abide by the present witness. Now, the present witness is the source of genius. And when I say genius, I don't mean it in a cultural sense. I mean it in a sense where novelty has been paid attention to, and that novelty has found the value. That means you suddenly looked at your moment and you realize, wait a minute, have I been looking at my moment only in one way? Could my moment have infinite angles, just like how an object you can look at it from various directions, various degrees? Can you look at a subject, the subject that you feel you are through various degrees, and what is the implication of the multidimensionality of your thoughts? So let me tell you this because it's a fascinating. I remember I kind of pondered about this in my youth. that, like, I don't know, maybe like 11 years ago, where it was like, of course, you get introduced very early to the concept that the universe is made from atoms, and it's a brilliant concept, by the way. It is the bunker that shields the ignorant youth, so the ignorant youth can harbor within from the freedom of their ignorance, the glory of their clarity. So what I mean by that is, you see, think of it this way: that every being is great, but it's just like their greatness is either consciously active or it is unconscious. So like it's like the whole thing is not the easiest way, guys. It's like the easiest way to kind of make the new age community chill is kind of realize that we are all conscious energy, and we impose the classification. So for me, language, as much as I every time I speak, like this is something where in my youth I was very robotic, a bit not robotic, but it was like I was trying to, speech was memorization. The way you transcend speech being memorization is actually not caring for the concepts, not so I don't think about the words when I speak. I wonder what image am I seeing. Like an artist, it's as if for me every word there is a world behind it. Okay? And that world is a reflection of what your experiences have brought forth. It's as if the light beam that has entered your eyes, it didn't just stop there, it also entered your inner realms. In some sense, without objectivity, how could there be imagination? How could there be subjective movement? So you see, we are the most healthiest way to look at life. It's like, okay, it's unknown. Now, the attempt of conscious living should be to make it known, to make the civilization advance, to perceive it in various directions and angles, and sometimes to see that life is not a story. Sometimes I remember any time in my inner realm I gave a story power, I believed the story, I failed. I am telling you, it's like what's better than believing stories of success or failure? You know, it's as if like moving beyond the language threshold, experientially realizing that your presence is existential intelligence, and we have to study this as a civilization, and we haven't been doing that because we think everything is just matter. How ridiculous is that? We just track the whole universe in one dimension of context when the mind is generating every day endlessly. So when imagine one day suddenly we had all the scientists in the world. This is playful. This is a playful story that's I'm kind of animating now, but the story was of a king. This is the story that comes to mind. It was of a king who forcefully, against the law of the inner sincerity, simplicity of being, decency, the being in some sense what came to conquer the kingdom, and he pushed out the old king and he conquered. He conquered a king, pretty much. Those are weak kings, by the way. The kings that conquer kings from the inside, that's a weakness. But or it's arrogant greatness, I don't know. But it's like Or it's better yet, great arrogance. But anyways, this king he gets the crown, this like incredible crown, you know, and he sits in the throne, Game of Thrones style, and he's about to put the crown on his own head, where the crown, the moment it touches his head, becomes paper. Sorry guys, I gotta write something down really quick. Alright guys, pretty much the king, every time he puts the crown and becomes paper, he doesn't deserve it. He hasn't abided by his sincerity. He hasn't accepted the simpler advancement of life. Sometimes when you want to run towards something complex, confusion is the immediate result. But sometimes if you go with the pace of your own knowing, then nothing really can disturb the inner realms. You see, the inner realms, they are not, they're free from the objective realms in some way. That's why I'm saying you're not your thoughts and you're not matter. You're an unknown field witnessing the moment, being the whole moment, really. So, the sincere presence is the prime mover of intuition. Really, it's like communication is like painting. And really, it's like the inner artwork kind of sprouting in the outer realms. And it's like suddenly, like giving a talk and feeling like you're, right, there's a NASCAR race. We have to pretty much find the edge of our mind sincerely. That means mindfully. Mindfulness means not shutting the door very hard. That means being conscious. Like, there's this incredible quote by Thich Nhat Hanh where he says, let me find the quote. It's so worth finding this quote. Sorry guys, I'm just looking for this quote. I mean, one quote he has, this is not the one, but he says, Thich Nhat Hanh, this Vietnamese Zen master, he says, when we touch the earth mindfully, Every step will bring peace and joy to the world. Sorry, not Zen Master, Buddhist. Thich Nhat Hanh. Guys, I'll just go into a quote tunnel. This guy's quotes are awesome. I'm just gonna read it. Many people are alive, but don't touch the miracle of being alive. Thich Nhat Hanh says, walk as if you're kissing the earth with your feet. That's like, I feel some aliens do that also. But he means consciously. He means when he says kiss the earth with your feet, he means when you kiss someone, it's a very conscious moment. And how can I tell you? It's as if it's an appreciation. It's a gratitude for the presence. You know. I can't believe I can't find this quote. It's a quote that's like in one of his books, but can't let me remember. It was like, with one conscious step, I enter paradise, something like that. Let's see. Again, I have not found that quote I wanted, but he has this other awesome quote where he says, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. The breath is so awesome, guys. I don't know how many people consciously breathe, but it just, it's the health. It's something that maintains your health. You know, it's like so many people speak about diet, but not a lot of people speak about breathing. And breathing is not just breathing. I mean, everyone's breathing, but it's like suddenly taking into the fact that you're a biological being and your body's putting in effort. And actually, sometimes when you have a aerial view of your own body, you can say playfully in your inner realms, you can kind of see that, okay, this body is like this nature that is putting in effort to remain. Now, how much is the person giving direction to this effort? It's like your body is nature's, like all your cells are like, Commander, we got you. You know, we're here. You know, all your biological body cells, like troops, are like, we're here for you, you know? And then you, as the commander, they're all waiting for your orders, but you are, it's as if no orders are coming. You know, you're like the general, you know? And so the general of your cells, imagine. And so it's as if that's the thing about recognizing that life is an opportunity to direct not just only matter, but also a lot of subjective phenomena in the void. Believe it or not, what it is, I don't understand how the concept of fear can exist in a void. It's like, how can you fear the void? What is the content to fear? You know? And everything has, I think, a certain behavioral value. Sometimes what I think the process of communication, it becomes more advanced. So let me tell you what I mean by that. Right now, in our current, like in 2020, we can say, Sorry, guys, my attention was suddenly taken away. Um, Pretty much, guys, it's like Thich Nhat Hanh, this man, there's something I don't know how many people know, but I'm gonna contribute to their cause because and you can say kind of like there were certain Vietnamese Buddhists that did some extreme actions of self-immolation. Now that is sometimes one has to, a Buddhist can wonder. I think it's kind of like this is how many ideological systems work in the world, where, for example, whatever religion you're in, imagine the prophet or the main archetype of that religion to, in some sense, be beside you watching what you're watching. Would that archetype watch it or not? You know? Now, the thing is, we kind of are naming matter in the void. On a rock in the middle of nowhere, our truths are born with different intensities and multidimensional directives. I feel it's like there's nothing more cooler to do in this life. I think the coolest thing to do in life is to live in an advanced civilization. When you look at the cultural program, sure, I get it. Yeah, it's like freedom, of course. Freedom is so important. It's like, but imagine freedom, that problem got solved. Everybody was free. What then? What would freedom do when it's really free? So we would see that that freedom would have to build, and that would be a moment where after you have found your truth or whatever treasure you were seeking in this world, once you find that, you come back to the same moment you started. Kind of like a Paulo Coelho alchemist kind of loop, and you suddenly return to the sincerity of your own home. But this home is not a home of physical. It's not like a house. It's this home is a sense that you are valued in the advancement of your civilization. It's like everything that I see in society that I see. It's like um, inefficient. I wonder why. It's like any problem I've ever seen. I'm like, why are you here, problem? You know? And the problems you don't hear knocking. The solution is direct confrontation. A person, a pilot, you can't be a pilot literally, like an airplane pilot. I speak of the pilots of consciousness, but like you can't be a literal airplane pilot, if you aren't able to handle the plane speed at various elevations in the sky. The fascination for aviation is the same. I think it's similar, but of a much more higher. It's more rewarding aviation than, let's say, scuba diving. Both journeyers are experiencing different worlds or different states of objective being, but the subjective being can remain. This is what I always was fascinated about, like the Navy SEALs, and it's not just of it's like of various countries, is that they had a sort of direct. I mean, this is something that I've kind of appreciated about the military of every nation. Even though I of course, the segmentation of nations, I see that concept as flawed. It's unnecessary. It's as if we weren't tribes, who would be fighting who? But but this doesn't mean suddenly dismantling the heritage of the cultural evolution of different nations and suddenly unifying everything. It kind of means that we suddenly realize we're moving into an era where we can access the multidimensional. And that means you can never judge anyone because you can always see more dimensions. That's the thing about life. You pretty much the point of us being conscious and experiencing is to see dimensions and perceive it. And now we are a conscious response to that. Means like a turtle is seeing like the world, let's say okay, let's say there's like a 200-year-old tortoise, you know, giant tortoise, and beside you in like a beach, like let's say like a couple meters away, and then an alien, let's say playfully, whatever alien you like to fathom, comes and lands on the beach in front of you and the tortoise, the turtle. So in that moment, how much you see, you might freak out, but the turtle is like, okay. The turtle is the animal species is like, okay, it's just my environment. What do you want me to do? But it's mankind that can see resolutions of various dimensions. It's like this is, I think, a primary focus of Noam Chomsky's, what I have at least perceived of Noam Chomsky's efforts, that he's trying to say there's a complexity to how our subjective realms, our inner realms, are kept into this linguistic simulation is alive. Okay, so there's an incredible sophistication to it, and we haven't found a way. And me personally, Mr. Within is telling you, language it cannot contain the truth. Language is a technology. It's like somebody driving a car, and imagine like, okay, playfully, I don't know. Okay, I'll bring another extraterrestrial metaphor. Let's say an alien of whatever alien you can imagine suddenly comes and says, "Hey man, is this car you?" And imagine like the alien, imagine, can't say that if you are the actual vehicle or there's a driver inside the vehicle. The alien, let's say, is foreign to that view. So it would be a situation, or let's say AI robot, I don't know, whatever. But but the idea is like, you see, it's reality is kept in different values, and when you realize the values that you project, it's kind of like a painter who's just like without any design, just painted, just went freestyle for a long time, and he's developed some sort of skill of practice. But then he suddenly gets tired of this overworking kind of painting, and suddenly just has to relax for a bit. The painter, it's like, think of it this way: life is not made it's like, regardless of the meaning, the story, the narrative, the idea we give it, it's just happening. Okay, you can say the whole world is just happening. It's like, this is the religion of just happening. Just stuff is happening, and then we impose the subjective architecture upon it. We build the subjective architecture. And sincerity, I mean, it's kind of like why Leonardo da Vinci said simplicity is the most ultimate sophistication, And so what he meant by that, again, is kind of like, be conscious not just as matter in space, but as space, and then the matter is. You see, a lot of things in life, it's like you don't need an explanation. The person doesn't doesn't say to their heartbeat, keep beating, man. The heart just beats. It's the biological program that we're in. It's just, it happens with certain intensity, certain values, certain accessibilities, and it's like the human being is like this. I remember this in this YouTube video, this incredibly, I think, genius rabbi, he said something about like he sees people as packets of energy. Now, of course, because he was a rabbi, so he perceives it as divine energy. But like, he didn't say that, but I think that's where it leads. But the whole thing was that we are packets of energy, and what does that mean? That's another way of saying we are conscious potential. if we choose to recognize we're not just moving our physical body around, there's a space. It's like where are your memories right now? Like I do understand they're neurological projections, but where? It's like how is it that you can? It's like if we consider the brain's neurology is changing all the time, how is it that I can hold on to a thought? Do you know? And so what I mean by that is that attention is beyond uh, matter is found in attention. Attention is not matter. So neurology at best is probably a very sophisticated mirror. It's mirroring a field of intelligence. Neurology, the way the neurons are moving are not necessarily just from the body. I feel they're mirroring, they're reflections of a field. And that field is not conceptual. And it's kind of like feeling your whole life like you're a leaf, okay, in a river, and then suddenly realizing, no, you're the river. Do you know? You're the river. You're not the leaf. So what that means is the body is just what you've been gifted with so far. And I feel life is pretty much like really what it is. It's like every day is a gift because you get to see more, of course. Thanks, guys. My attention just came to the chat section. You guys are too kind. I don't know, guys. We're more intelligent than we're being told or we're believing. And because we can have different beliefs. And what is that? It's like, well, how can you believe when you can have different beliefs? It's like, what does that even mean? So it's like there's so much freedom. It's like that how can free will has and so much freedom that it can consider itself God. Do you know there's been people on this earth that have walked and they're like, yeah, I'm God right now. You know? And it's not that they weren't, they were the god of their inner realm. They felt like a god of their inner realm, but they were arrogant. They felt that their inner realm, they felt that the outer realm had to kind of follow the inner realm. I'm telling you, when you expect the world to already know what's behind your eyes, that could be insensitive. And when I say insensitive to what? It's life sensitivity. That means regardless of who you see, they are honestly like a member of your species that has evolved this far. And it's like would you like people to get to see more? And I think that's the effort. I could totally you know fit in with a crowd of scribes. Because you have to care for something more than yourself, or you'll only see yourself. It's boring. It's boring being selfish. It gets boring. I'm telling you. I can totally see the power kind of adrenaline rush of it, but it's like after some point, do you want to just see one person? Do you want to only see one person in the mirror? Kind of advance, or do you want to see a civilization? It's like back in the day in Italy, there was the Medici family, and the Medici family was like, how can I tell you, they were bankers, and even though nobody, like, how can I tell you, their motives could have been questionable, but they had this ingenious design in Italy back in the day to make the streets beautiful with incredible art. Like, how can I tell you, it's like put the best out, the best kind of they thought of making society beautiful and great and efficient. Maybe I should say gentler, pretty efficient. But the thing is, like, I'm telling you, when there's a better way possible, it's like, what are you waiting for? And that better way sometimes comes with patience too. I can't tell you how many times waiting has been kind of like dodging the bullets of karma. I was just patient. I was just kind of like, my attention was just being. I don't know. I personally have found a strange contentment with just being and existing as just phenomena. Now, this doesn't mean I don't see myself as a person throughout the day. It just means that if there's a moment where the external conditions become too intense, it's like the pilot ejects from the subjective landscape. So I become a watcher of my own life at that point. You know. What I mean is that it's kind of about like, every person has access to a certain code. Imagine like, your perception throughout the day is like one line on that Matrix movie kind of, what do you call it? Like a screen. Those green, um, vertical code. So it's as if every person throughout the day, their ideological, I don't know, constitution, whatever way they are an idea, that's like a line of code. That's a association with a set of language. But really, being even honest enough to acknowledge there's the unknown here, I think that's the starting point. That's the liftoff platform. That we don't glorify our limited knowledge and again attempt towards the limitless unknown. And guys, I know I said I wouldn't speak about it, but Civilization 2.0 is um, is a vision of mine where I'm kind of dedicating a lot to. You know, pretty much it's like it has become the major importance of my kind of. Pretty much, I kind of thought like, imagine you're walking in the street, and imagine you suddenly look in the distance and you're like, wait a minute, is that building flying into the sky? And you notice suddenly the whole city is moving into the sky. And it's an idea where I'm kind of suggesting that there's a level of wonder that is untapped by our species because it has not cared for what is here. And if it cares, then an advanced civilization emerges. Sometimes nature can gift the vision of man. So how can I say it? It's like, how much do you trust yourself as a being? And what is the value of even trusting your being? Where can it take you? Considering yourself as an attributeless attention, and that we start off from stillness and silence, and the world animates, the world wakes up, civilization wakes up, and it's, believe it or not, it's one of those things where it's not just external technologies that are evolving the nature of man. The inner realms are opening up to people. And this means that a level of creativity is going to overflow. This is probably going to happen, I feel like, maybe in 30 years. And during that duration, we're just going to see its increase, like raising the volume knob of the greatest song you will ever hear, you know? And imagine with every breath, you found yourself walking in a vast library. You know, something that the Logos very poetically whispered to me was, in some sense, there are libraries behind every person's eyes. And you can see them as a library. Some people in ancient cultures, and even in Abrahamic context, they saw it as gates. And so there are inner gates. There's a labyrinth behind your eyes. Not labyrinth. But you know that image could be seen. It's like, think of it this way: potential energy becoming kinetic energy. It's like there are two states you exist in. One, you have accepted stillness and silence, and you can then move on to accepting movement and noise. That means I have a strange contentment that any human being can come and say anything to me, and I would just be staring, you know. And sometimes I feel people like, how can I tell you, your attention be more than just local to your body. Okay, sometimes you can walk throughout the day and feel like your whole moment is your mind, and there is a presence there, right? So for me, it's like, whoa, what's this intelligent presence looking at itself in the mirror, in this unknown mirror of life? And there is transformation, guys. I mean, everything is changing. Every child that is born is like a different DNA entering the system. Uh, in some sense, finding whatever tools it can, like a survivor in an empty universe, you know, and in some sense, building something with it. And I feel every human being, really, if they just cared for the details of how their life is happening, they will get access to so much more. That means I can't tell you that it's like this. I'll give you an example. For example, I didn't like reading in my when I was younger. It was just like I would read it, and I would read it very slow. In my youth, I just tried it very slow, you know, and I would read it, and I was like, oh gosh, and then I would come to a word I didn't understand, so I had to look that up. I'm like, what is this? How does this sentence make sense if there's suddenly like a gap in the sentence? So it was like slow, right? And then later on, I just wondered, wait a minute, I've tried really slowly reading every word one by one robotically. And then I was like, wait a minute, why don't I just creatively just accelerate it? And so I suddenly began just attempting to read as fast as I could. As fast. Like that means I didn't have there was no end to the effort, you know? It was just like putting your feet on a gas pedal and not even moving it afterwards. It was like in my inner realms. I was kind of like, and I was reading this thing and trying to see a film behind my eyes, and the film animated so much more quickly. You know, even though there were gaps, but there was enough comprehension to see where the direction of the, where the captain was directing the ship. And then eventually, once you kind of open up the dictionary, and they're like, oh my God, are these words kind of words are honestly like, how can I tell you? It's like, to a younger audience, I would say it's like Lego pieces of your subjective realm, you know? I don't know. It's like we have to. Terence McKenna had something great. He said a culture evolves as fast as its language does. And then Ludwig Wittgenstein says the limits of my language are the limits of my world. And then Hafiz says The words you speak become the house you live in. You see, and even to take this even more next level, Rumi says, uh, silence is the language of God. All else is poor translation. That means the revelation of the mystery of the unknown came from silence. And you can say the prophetic figure went into a sort of silent isolation. And in that silent isolation, the person began wondering, who am I? You know, now in 2020, like there's the COVID-19 thing going on, and so people have to be indoors. And I thought, it's like, what? Okay, so if the person has to be indoors, it's like, now wonder about your inner realms, wonder about your own mind. Pretty much go buy a stack of paper and fill every paper with a kind of whatever design your mind projects throughout the day. For me, that writing is, how can I tell you, is a relationship with the unknown for me. It's like it's divine, believe it or not. I think, let me tell you why, because it's a complete synchronization of the inner rhythmic realm, like the rhythm of the thoughts coming in, and then with the hand being synchronized to moving. Eventually, when you write a lot, suddenly you don't even think about the pen in your hand. Your hand just finds a pen, and just instantly you're going with the speed of the thought, is the speed of the river of thoughts that are coming. And these river of thoughts have to do with the archetypal kind of relationship we have. And so how can I tell you, it's like, just like atoms, uh, are a kind of geometrical translation of the world. Are a kind of geometrical translation of the world. What it means is ultimately attention to design is presence. And sincerity is when from that presence you animate as a being. So that's how you come to your sincere presence. I don't know. It's honor was I kind of came into a sense of it reading Hagakura, the book of the samurai, you know, and it's written by the name of a man who I can't pronounce his name, but he's and out of respect, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this, but the book was saying something like as if every moment is everything. And it's kind of like, if you consider your mind is, like they say, there's this Japanese saying that the man is the room he's in. Okay, so if you're in a room where there's inefficiency, you're inefficient. If you're in a room where there's efficiency, you're efficient. If you handle your inner realms, if you project a room where your sense of yourself subjectively is weak, then it's as if you're in an inefficient inner room. And so anytime there's inefficiency, anytime there's failure, literally you're being given the route to success. Literally, it's like a blueprint. It's like the person fails, he fails and hits the curb, but then he looks up and he's like, whoa, there's like this map to the evolution of the skill, you know. And when the person can become comfortable, so I think this is a very cool thing to do. And I tell people, like, wherever you are in the world as a being, you can always just sit down. Just anywhere you are, just sit down comfortably. And you just kind of like bask in your being and watch. You watch your own moment. And there is no greater definition of enlightenment. You watch how light has made existence. You figure it out. And you come and share your findings of the inner realms with kind of hunter-gatherers of the modern society. Really, it's like we are defined by our glory, and that glory is skill oriented, and skill means how much we cared. It's like, let me tell you, it's like, it's kind of, I think it's kind of good to care for everything. Now, let me tell you why. Because you kind of see it. Anything you don't care about, it's like, imagine like suddenly like, um, you've put your hands beside your eyes to not see your peripheral vision. You know? So it's like the mind has an ability to suddenly tune out of rhythms of meaning, subjective meaning. And so we have to study how language is simulating our meaning pretty much. So anyways, guys, if anybody has any thoughts or questions on what I'm saying, or they see something even further than I've seen in what I'm saying, you can feel free to share now, you know, because I pretty much finished the talk. Like I feel 10 minutes ago. Oh, okay. No. I'll tell you this. I don't meditate. I don't meditate. I don't even call. To be honest, it's not even conceptual anymore for me. And what I mean by that is, it's like definitely the at point of it is not an image. I'm not going to meditate to see images. You know, I go with already like a pre-contentment of just simplicity. You know, I want to watch the simplicity, as if my whole life has been defined by complex action, and then suddenly I just want to see the simple for a change, you know? And so for me, it's always like some feeling, I don't know, like I think a lot of how I process information as a being is emotional, and I still haven't decoded it. Like I don't even know how it's happening, you know? But I know, and I think it's because the limitation is how we have defined the concept of emotion, or how we have limited its context, which grants its evolution. So I could, okay, here, I'll tell you this. Like, um, last time I meditated, I was kind of in a park, and I just saw an image of myself in that moment, in my inner realms, that I'm sitting somewhere in the park. And I just went and sat there. It was like this feeling. I just trusted the feeling, you know? Uh, and I'll tell you, I've walked as a fool in many moments. But yeah, I just trust the image. Uh, yeah, I see an image. How can I tell you? It's like I get a feeling. I go sit somewhere, and I just like the whole idea is like a pond. You're letting your whole intelligence, whatever way it's been active so far, to just settle down. And then it's just as you automatically settle down, thoughts are archetypes are like fighting for their life before they the surface of the pond settles, and you just watch. That's it. Be still and watch. The mind is not, we're not only here to be the mind, we can also watch our mind. We can learn from it, believe it or not. The mind is the generator of how you have a relationship with phenomena, you know? So, so that's the thing. I mean, it's like I don't have a strict code. I mean, I know many various ways. It was a hobby of mine to figure it out in 2012. But 2013, you know, the core of Tibetan Buddhism. I was like that Persian guy, that Persian kid in 2012 who was like, all right, let's see what Tibetan Buddhism is about. And when I said what it's about, I was kind of like, I went knocking at the CEO's door internally. So I asked the question of questions, and then I wondered what the answer would be, and then I wondered after I had that answer, what would the greater question be? And pretty much in regards to subjective kind of thinking as a human being, first of all, you're not a thought because a thought cannot think. A thought is the product of thing. If what we think is thinking. Like you see, the concept is so weak. So, Jake, I hope that was decent enough answer. Pretty much it's intuitive. I just feel it out. And let me tell you something. When you get comfortable with how you simply exist, then you enjoy the complexity. You don't know how many people are living complex lives, but they don't enjoy the complexity of it because their contexts are limited to the temporary simulations of their desire. That means the person who has a certain desire wants a certain thing from life. Do you know how many things that person is not seeing? This is the savageness. That's why they say when you follow your desires too much, you're kind of like really like an animal. You know, you have descended into you have kind of been you're pretty much walking against the river of evolution. I'm telling you, so Jake, I'll tell you this in the chat section. Listen, I freed myself from the need for thought to be there. And not that it can't be there. It's thought is sometimes, Sadhguru, this mystic, he says, the content of your mind is not your choice. That means life comes and goes, and it comes and goes through your perception, through your perspective, through your vision. And as life is happening for you, and as various subjective symbolic attribution is instantly being imposed into matter, and so it's as if that we are really the linguistic simulation is keeping the objective survival. We have directed ourselves through evolution beyond it, beyond the objective evolution into the subjective evolution. And you know, I think guys, I'm telling you, the way I kind of looked at my nature, I was like born in 1991. And when I was in Iran, till like the age of 7, and then went to Vancouver, Canada. And when I was in Iran, it was like, how can I say it? Like, my childhood, like me and my cousins and brother, we would just put leaves in this, like, there was this, my grandma had this giant cottage called in Damovan, this place in Iran, couple hour drive. And it was a kind of garden like paradise. And so my childhood, I had access to a lot of gardens actually. Gardens were the video game before video games. And I don't know, it's a reversion back into a simpler self before the complexity began. That simpler self is the conscious view, and even if you call it complexity or not. So this is my whole thing about developing the concept, the language threshold. Anyways, guys, I feel I should end off here. I want to thank everyone for listening. Uh, Really, conscious breathing is the way. Go enjoy how you're being alive, and that's the greatest way to find. You can say the inner evolution, because the more we see, the more advanced civilization becomes. Much blessings and namaste.